They laughed behind closed doors when the CEO collapsed during a meeting. "She's finished," they whispered, pretending to care in front of her, but already planning who would take her chair next. Her diagnosis, a rare, incurable disease, spread faster than her success ever had. For years, she had been the face of strength, building the company from nothing, treating her employees like family. Yet the moment weakness touched her, everyone she trusted vanished. Investors backed out, board members avoided her calls, and even her closest friends began to drift away with polite excuses. Once surrounded by loyal partners and admiring colleagues, she now faced empty halls, silent phones, and pitying glances. The world that once praised her for being unstoppable now pitted her for being broken. Late one night, as rain pounded against the tall glass windows of her office, she sat alone under the flickering light. The building was almost empty, just the echo of the storm outside and the faint hum of the janitor's cleaning machine in the distance. She stared at the documents on her desk, termination notices, unpaid bills, and a letter from her doctor reminding her that the disease was progressing faster than expected. Her trembling hands tried to sign another paper, but her body gave up. The pen slipped, and she fell to the cold marble floor. Her chest tightened, pain spreading through her like fire. For a moment, she thought it was the end. But then, footsteps approached fast. The janitor, Mr. Rahim, dropped his mop and rushed to her side, his face pale with fear. He gently lifted her, his rough hand surprisingly steady. "You shouldn't be alone," he said softly. She forced a bitter smile, her voice weak. "Everyone leaves when you're no longer useful." He looked at her, eyes filled with something she hadn't seen in a long time, sincerity. "Not everyone, ma'am. Some stay because they remember kindness." His words struck her heart like a quiet truth. She remembered how, months ago, she had approved his leave when his son was ill, even when HR had denied it. She hadn't thought much of it then, it was just compassion. But now, that small act had returned to her like a lifeline. Over the next few days, Mr. Rahim began staying late, bringing her tea, checking on her when everyone else left. He didn't have much, yet he treated her with a dignity that even her board members had forgotten. She noticed his shoes were torn, his hands rough from years of labor, yet his spirit was gentle. One evening, when she insisted he should go home, he smiled. "My home is full of memories I try to forget. Here, I can still be useful." Those words stayed with her all night. For the first time in months, she felt less alone. Slowly, she learned that Mr. Rahim had once been a teacher back in his hometown, but after his wife fell ill, he sold everything to bring her to the city for treatment. She didn't survive, and since then, he worked any job he could find to support his children. Listening to him, the CEO realized how easily life can turn even the strongest into the forgotten. One morning, she came to the office early and found an envelope on her desk. Inside was money, small bills, neatly folded, with a note in shaky handwriting, "For your medicine. Please don't refuse." Tears filled her eyes. She checked the security cameras and saw Mr. Rahim leaving quietly before dawn. That day, she sat in her chair, staring at the envelope, overwhelmed by a mix of guilt and gratitude. Why would someone who had nothing give so much to someone who once had everything? When she confronted him later, he tried to hide his face. "My wife died of the same illness," he said, voice trembling. "I couldn't save her, but maybe I can save you." The words shattered the walls she had built around her heart. For the first time, she cried, not as a CEO, not as a leader, but as a human being. She realized how empty her success had been without compassion, how power meant nothing when love was absent. Days turned into weeks, and Mr. Rahim's quiet care became her strength. He would leave notes of encouragement on her desk, small phrases like, "One more day of courage," or, "The storm always passes." Sometimes he brought his daughter, a shy little girl who would sit in the corner drawing while her father worked. The girl once handed the CEO a drawing of her surrounded by stars and said, "Daddy says you're brave." That simple act touched her deeper than any award she'd ever received. Slowly, her health began to stabilize. The doctors couldn't explain it, but she knew, it was hope. Hope born from kindness, from being seen as a person, not a patient. Months later, when she returned to lead a company meeting, everyone was shocked to see her standing again. Her voice was calm but strong. "When I fell, most of you stepped back," she said, scanning the room. "But one man, the one you all walk past every day, stepped forward." She called Mr. Rahim to the stage. The crowd fell silent as the janitor walked slowly, confused and nervous. She smiled at him, tears glistening in her eyes. "He reminded me that humanity doesn't come with a title. It comes with heart." Then she handed him a document, his promotion to facilities supervisor, a permanent position with full benefits and his daughter's education sponsored by the company. The hall erupted in applause, but the loudest sound was the quiet pride in Mr. Rahim's eyes. From that day forward, the CEO changed how her company worked. She replaced competition with compassion, numbers with names, and goals with gratitude. Every employee's story mattered. She created a health fund for workers' families, named after Mr. Rahim's late wife, to ensure no one would ever face illness alone again. The company's success returned, stronger than before, not because of business strategies, but because it was built on empathy. Late one evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, she sat in her office again. But this time, she wasn't alone. Mr. Rahim came by with tea, his daughter running in with her drawings. The CEO looked at them and smiled. "You saved more than my life," she whispered. "You saved my soul." He shook his head gently. "No, ma'am. You just found the part of it that was always good." And for the first time in years, she felt whole. "If you want, I can write part 2, continuation, around 1,000 words, where she faces another moral test after recovery, showing redemption, legacy, and sacrifice. Would you like me to write that next?" Weeks later, the CEO discovered something that left her speechless. Her personal assistant mentioned quietly that someone had been paying her hospital bills when she was too weak to manage them herself. At first, she assumed it was an anonymous board member trying to earn favor. But when she pressed further, the truth broke her heart. Mr. Rahim, the janitor who had stood by her side when everyone else walked away, had been selling his belongings to pay for her treatment. Her mind went blank. She couldn't understand why a man with so little would give up everything for her, a woman who had once owned everything. The next day, she called him to her office. He entered nervously, his uniform clean but worn, his hands clasped tightly. "Why did you do this?" she asked, her voice trembling. He looked down, eyes glistening. "My wife died of the same illness," he whispered. "I couldn't save her, but maybe I can save you." Those words shattered her completely. For years, she had believed that power was what made people strong, but in that moment, she realized true strength was found in sacrifice. She broke down, crying in front of a man society would never see as her equal. But to her, he was more than equal. He was proof that goodness still existed in a world obsessed with status. Days passed, and the bond between them grew quietly. Mr. Rahim never asked for gratitude. He still mopped the floors, still smiled at everyone who ignored him, still carried that same humble grace. But every time she saw him, the CEO felt a surge of respect she couldn't explain. She began to notice the details she had once missed, the tired lines on his face, the way he paused near the photo of her company's founders, the quiet dignity in his eyes. One afternoon, she asked him to sit with her for tea. At first, he refused, saying he wasn't dressed for it. But she insisted. They talked about life, loss, and resilience. He told her how his daughter dreamed of becoming a nurse, how he wished to see her heal others the way no one could heal his wife. Listening to him, she felt a warmth she hadn't known in years, a feeling of family, something money could never buy. Months passed, and against all odds, her health began to improve.